Silent Hill Homecoming, an entry in the series developed by another team new to Silent Hill. It drew inspiration from previous games and also the Silent Hill films. A game that was taking the psychological elements from the series' roots, but its gameplay was something else. Originally meant to be Silent Hill 5, Homecoming would try to revolutionize that Silent Hill formula and change things, hopefully for the better. Today, I'm going to be taking a comprehensive look at Silent Hill Homecoming, exploring gameplay, mechanics, story, and everything in between. If you haven't seen my previous videos on the series, you should probably go check them out now. Most of the events aren't going to be directly referenced, but it would help to get a better sense for the themes of the series before moving forward. Spoiler alert for Silent Hill Homecoming. Hi Dad, it's me, your favorite son, and today I want to talk about Silent Hill Homecoming. To really get into Homecoming's origins, we need to go back before Silent Hill 4. Originally, Team Silent wanted the third entry in the series to be a more psychological story, following the tone of Silent Hill 2. They wanted to continue the concept of preying on the inner fears of the audience. Konami didn't like this idea as they weren't impressed with Silent Hill 2's sales, and had also heard complaints from fans that Silent Hill 2 didn't continue Alessa's story. The team had to compromise and ended up shelving their ideas until Silent Hill 4 was released. Since sales were waning, the team wanted to make a strong fifth entry. Masashi Tsuboyama stated in 2004 that development had begun on Silent Hill 5. They were revisiting their ideas for Silent Hill 3, and it was originally supposed to start off as a normal town that would rot away as the story progressed. This idea was eventually cancelled, Team Silent was disbanded, and Silent Hill Homecoming was created. A new team would be working on the games this time around, Double Helix. Double Helix was created out of two merged companies, The Collective and Shiny Entertainment. The Collective was also created out of two other merged companies, Backbone Entertainment and Foundation 9. That's usually a good sign, right? At E3 2007, a teaser was revealed, announcing that this would be the first Silent Hill game developed for next-gen consoles. Double Helix wanted to take inspiration from past games, but also try their own hand at the series. There will be quite a few references to the previous entries with this game. Again, Akira Yamaoka returned to complete the OST and sound effects for the game. There was some slight controversy surrounding censorship for Homecoming before release. The Australian Classification Board refused to classify the game due to impact violence and excessive blood effects. The Australian version of the game was banned until 2009. Silent Hill Homecoming was released on September 30th, 2008 for PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360. Before we get into things, I'd like to give my obligatory notes. If you've seen my previous videos, you'll know that the story of Silent Hill is usually hidden beneath, requiring research and multiple playthroughs to deduce the real tale. First, I'll give a surface-level explanation of my playthrough, including mechanics, gameplay, and story. At the end, we'll get into the real story of Silent Hill Homecoming. I also would like to say that I played Silent Hill Homecoming on the Xbox 360. I had a lot of trouble trying to get the PC port of this game to work. I tried many fan patches, troubleshooting, and just pounding my head against my desk in frustration, but nothing worked. In the end, I had to panic buy an Xbox 360 disc with overnight shipping because I couldn't play the PC port with a resolution higher than 1280 by 720 and still get footage. Top that off with the game not saving half the time and crashing whenever I alt-tabbed, I had to go to consoles. Sorry, PC bros. Even the Xbox 360 version had its fair share of issues though. It dropped frames constantly, which, trust me, you'll inevitably see in the footage. Silent Hill Homecoming starts with a first-person view of our new main character, Alex Shepard. He's been gurneyed through a hospital, and he's seeing people tortured in the other rooms. This scene is very Jacob's Ladder. It's actually almost identical to the hospital scene from that movie. This movie has been a large inspiration for the series so far, and really shows its head here. Alex is left in an operating room, and the nurse that took him there is impaled outside. We have to escape the gurney using our new friend, QTEs, which rear their head again in this entry. There's a memo stating that a patient is to receive a lobotomy tomorrow. Alex heads out into the hospital. He sees his brother, Joshua, on the other side of some bars, but he can't get to him. Alex heads down the hall and hears a baby's cries coming from one of the rooms and finds it to be a burned doll. In here, we find an X-ray film that we can combine with another in the office to get the keypad code and get to Josh. Josh runs away, but his drawing is left on the ground. Chasing Joshua through the bathroom, the place starts to turn. We see the transformation of this area into the other world. This new look and aesthetic takes very much from the film's Otherworld rather than the game's, especially the flaking floor and wall transformation. We fight our first nurse and get our first taste of combat. Homecoming throws out Silent Hill's old system of hacking away at heads and auto-aim in favor of this new action-y combo system. We have a light and a strong attack with melee weapons. We can use these in conjunction to get combos which do more damage. The ranged combat is free aim and is the greatest change from the previous entries. I'll spoil it for you now, but I loathe this game's combat system so much. The controls are also incredibly different. Long gone are the days of tank controls and jarring camera angles representing the horror-laden world. Now we just have a static over-the-shoulder camera with a combination of third and first-person controls. I'll get into the nitty-gritty later, as the mechanics' terrible insides didn't really show themselves until about halfway through the game. Alex makes his way through the other world, fighting nurses, and eventually finds a fleshy wall which he can cut with his combat knife. We're introduced to a new enemy, the Swarm. These are pretty similar to Silent Hill's bugs of days gone by. They'll aptly swarm Alex and even attach themselves to him, draining his health slowly. We find a Polaroid photo on the ground of Joshua's toy, Robbie the Rabbit, in his backpack. The toy being a reference to Silent Hill 3's bloody amusement park companions. Before a room swarmed with nurses, Alex finds a shock therapy schedule for a patient on a shelf. Someone was getting copious amounts of treatment at the hospital. Dropping down into the lower area, we'll have to engage our new encouraged stealth mechanic. There's not really a crouch. Stealth in this game just consists of moving slow and turning off our flashlight. Enemies will be more drawn to Alex with his light on, which isn't anything new, so this can be used to tactically avoid battles. This was an interesting addition, but overall felt underutilized. I feel like if the team wanted a stealth system in the game, they should have just gone all the way with it, because I rarely used it outside of maybe 2 or 3 areas in the game. Running away is always just faster. In the next room, Alex finds a man who's been sliced in half. He holds the key to the operating theater. Heading there, we find some information stating that the doctors have been experimenting with higher than healthy levels of electroshock therapy. We find Joshua nearby, again blocked by bars. He wants his toy, so we have to find it. During this conversation, we get introduction to another interesting mechanic, choice dialogue. I don't really hate this as much as I thought I would. It doesn't really detract from the game very much, but it's also not really that impactful either. Outside of 3 choices in the game, none of the others will have an effect on the playthrough.
Find Robbie. I want my toy.
I haven't seen any toys around here.
Alex heads through into one of the hospital rooms and finds a hole in a mirror. Reaching inside, almost sees him pulled into it by some creature, but luckily we pass our QTE and he gets Josh's Robbie the Rabbit toy. Alex gives it to him, but he doesn't really care and runs away again.
Here.
I want Robbie.
This is yours, you remember? Where are you going?
Alex rushes after him and calls the elevator, but he's quickly killed by a creature with a large blade and wakes up in a truck. If you've seen my other videos, then this shouldn't surprise you that this was all a nightmare. The trucker is giving Alex a ride to Shepard's Glen, and just so happens to look a lot like Travis Grady from Silent Hill Origins. This might even actually be Travis Grady, but I couldn't find any definitive statements online, even though the Silent Hill wiki seems to state it pretty definitively. Alex is from Shepard's Glen. He's returning home, having just been released from the hospital for wounds he took during battle. Alex finds a 150th anniversary celebration flyer for the town of Shepard's Glen, and heading toward the town hall, Alex sees someone he knows.
Alex?
Judge Holloway. Hey.
I didn't know you were home. Does your mother know? She didn't say anything.
No, I haven't talked to her.
He says he doesn't plan on sticking around, and Judge Holloway says he should catch up with Elle, her daughter. Alex heads into the town hall and finds another Polaroid, this time of his mother and Judge Holloway in their home. We also get a big backstory on the town of Shepard's Glen. It was settled 150 years ago by pilgrims looking to practice their faith. The town thrived off tourism and grew over time, still managing a close-knit community. A newspaper article on the wall tells the story of an almost tragedy when Alex was a boy. A bus full of students was swept down the river and Dr. Fitch saved the children, but Alex's leg was trapped in the front of the vehicle. Dr. Fitch stayed with Alex until help arrived and probably saved his life. Outside of the new combat system, items and weapons are mostly unchanged from the original entries. We have multiple healing items, the classic health drinks and first aid kits, with the new addition of serums. Serums are the most powerful and rarest healing item in the game, but they also top Alex's health off a little higher than full, giving him a slight shield. Weapon menus and item menus are now separated. We can access the weapons by holding the right bumper and selecting our option from a wheel, and can use items by holding the left bumper and doing the same. Pressing X or Y on the items page will let us use a health drink or first aid kit, and pressing X or Y on the weapons screen will let us turn our flashlight on or off and stop our radio. This menu change was something I mostly felt neutral about. The UI itself was okay, and it probably made sense to split things up so you weren't searching for items for too long. The only problem with the menu was the way the selection worked. If I select an item with the stick by accident and end up deciding to use a health drink, letting go of the left bumper will still use the item I had selected. This is an especially grave mistake if the item selected was a serum, because they're pretty rare, and I ended up doing this on multiple occasions throughout my first playthrough. Alex makes his way back to his family home, but inside, there's no response. Upstairs, he finds a note from his mother to his father. She says the house is empty without him there. In his old bedroom, Alex finds a flashlight, and he has a flashback to his childhood.
God, what's your problem?
I had a bad dream. Never mind. It's nothing.
Look, take it.
Moving some books on a shelf will reveal a hidden back room, and inside we can find a map of the house, which you think Alex would already have memorized, but okay. Alex finds his mother sitting in the living room in an almost catatonic state.
Mom. Mom.
His mother says that everyone is gone, while holding an old revolver in her hands. She won't say what's happening with the town. Alex hears something coming from the basement and heads downstairs. Inside, we meet our first lurker. These monsters crawl on the ground, usually underwater. They drag their legs and have hooks for fingers. The goal with them is to deliver quick combos before they have the chance to attack. The basement is flooded and we need to get to the backyard. Unfortunately, we can't open the door because the latch is underwater. Alex heads to the garage to get gas for the water pump. Inside, he finds the gas can that's behind a steel door. This door can be pried open with the steel pipe that we retrieved earlier. Each weapon in this game not only has its use in combat, but its use in accessing different areas in the world. The dagger will unlock doors later, and the axe will hack down boards. This adds a new element to the game in the form of old areas having new points of access. Heading to the child's playground, we find a photo of a spider next to Alex's toys and another child's drawing. Both the drawings and Polaroids are collectibles. They provide more context to the town and Alex's life and family. Finding all of them throughout a playthrough will net us an extra scene at the end of the game. In the playground is a newspaper article about Paul Russell Douglas, who murdered 8 children around Silent Hill and Shepard's Glen and was executed for it. Alex finds a truck beside the playground and fills the gas tank, using it to turn on the water pump in the basement. This allows him access to the backyard. Out back, we find another drawing and get access to the kitchen. Inside, we can listen to a cassette tape found upstairs of Josh being scolded by his father for being too much like Alex.
Am I in trouble?
No, of course not.
Why are you yelling?
I'm not yelling at you. Listen to me, Josh. Don't you think this is a little too silly for you? Do you want to end up like Alex, playing all this make-believe?
I don't know.
Alright, from now on, just let Alex play with his own friends, okay? And if you need a friend, you come talk to me. Got it?
Yes, sir.
Pretty early on here, we get the hints of the dynamic between Alex, Josh, and their father. It seems Josh was the favorite son, and Alex was mostly a screw-up in his dad's eyes. He didn't want Josh to be anything like Alex, and it seems wanted to do it right this time. We can head out of the backyard and into an alley that leads to the Shepard's Glen cemetery. I have to say, for all this game's faults, it does look pretty good. Even if we're usually looking at it with a low frame rate, the environments are pretty well detailed, and the system upgrade has really done well for the atmosphere, though I definitely don't think it even comes close to matching any of the first 3 entries. Inside the cemetery, Alex sees a man digging graves. We're introduced to a new monster here as well, the Feral. These are very reminiscent of the Groaners from Silent Hill 1. They're pretty easy to deal with, though, by just spamming combos at them. One of the statues is dedicated to a child who died at 8 years old, and a half plate is laid on it, which we can take. Alex makes his way through the cemetery and finds the second half of this plate sat upon a statue dedicated to the girl's twin sister, who also died. We can use these 2 plates to unlock the gate heading out of the cemetery. Alex comes across a girl stapling missing posters up to a board. This is Elle, Judge Holloway's daughter.
Oh! Damn it! Oh.
You always were a klutz. You okay?
Alex? Oh my god, Alex!
Hey, Elle. Your mom told me I might see you around here.
Oh my god, it's so good to see you. It feels like it's been forever.
Yeah. You alone out here?
Well, hey, I didn't think I'd ever see you again.
She says everyone has gone missing in the town and no one is showing back up. Alex wants to look for his brother, and Elle gives him a walkie-talkie that she got from Deputy Wheeler. Heading to the junkyard, we find the man that owns the place, Curtis. He's unresponsive to all of our questions until he recognizes Alex as the son of the sheriff.
Maybe this'll interest you.
I know you. Sheriff's kid.
Alex.
Right. Military man now, I see.
I'm pretty sure it's broken. What do you think?
I think you must have stole this from your daddy.
Just tell me if you can fix it.
Now don't go barking orders at me, soldier.
He asks Curtis to fix up the old revolver he got from his mother, and he's pretty apprehensive. Eventually, he agrees to trade us a working pistol for it. Heading back outside, Deputy Wheeler contacts us on the radio. Alex is quickly assailed by a cloud of smoke, and we meet another enemy, the smog. These guys can be annoying as they spit out clouds of smoke that will disable Alex until a button press is completed. They can be easily taken down, though, by shooting their exposed lungs when attacking. Backtracking through the cemetery, one of the tombs is now open. We can complete a puzzle on one of the coffins to unlock it. This is just moving shapes around until we have enough space to free the piece at the top. These puzzles reminded me of those little toys you'd get at the book fair as a kid and eventually give up on because I didn't care about seeing the smiley face picture in the end. The coffin opens and inside is a watch. When Alex takes it, he hears sounds until he passes out and wakes up in Silent Hill. Josh runs inside of a motel, but we can't get inside just yet. Alex heads down a path and finds an axe which lets us chop down the boards, and now we can get inside. That was easy. Josh runs away inside and we find some notes about Mayor Bartlett working in the atrium. We have to get the power back on, and getting the maintenance key will give us access to the power box. We have to rewire the thing to get the power going, and using the note beside it that says XXI will tell us that we have to form those letters with the wires. I didn't really love the puzzles in this game, and I don't think they became particularly inspired until about halfway through. A lot of them were like the previous ones, sliding pieces around without any context or clues given. Some of them exist as their own isolated things, and half of the rest are just really simple. There's a few in this game that were interesting and made me think critically, but a lot of them just felt mundane. With the power back on, Alex calls the elevator, and on the way up, he's attacked by new enemies, the Needlers. These are a high point of enemy design, and I say that with their visual design in mind, not necessarily their design as an enemy that you actually have to fight. They look quite terrifying. Their contorted bodies, blades sticking out of appendages are unsettling. The elevator falls down and Alex escapes before it crashes. We find a painting that can be slashed open, revealing a door behind. On the door is a Polaroid of Joey Bartlett in the Shepard's treehouse. Alex meets a formless woman beyond a door, seemingly older in age, who wants us to find 3 memories of her life. She's been confined to the hotel and wants to regain these memories of the past, better times. We find the woman's first memory, a postcard of Alchemilla Hospital, a time before her illness overtook her. Throughout this area is the story of an affair between Mayor Bartlett and a woman named Carol. It's told through memos that we find hidden in different rooms. Alex hides behind a barricade as he sees something stalking the halls. Oh yeah, that's Pyramid Head. Well, actually in this game he's called the Boogeyman. I know for a fact that this facet of the game has been complained about to no end, and for that reason I won't spend too much time on it. As we all know, or should know by now, Pyramid Head was specific to James. He was a representation of James's guilt for his actions and his self-punishment. He was there to torture James for what he had done. Part of James's arc in Silent Hill 2 was him overcoming that torture and learning to move on. There's no reason that the character should be transferred to this game. You could realistically make the same case for things like the nurses or lying figures, as they are too subject to a reflection of James's psyche, though I don't think those are nearly as egregious as this. The question here that needs to be asked is, why revisit this monster? Well, there's multiple reasons. Pyramid Head is easily the most iconic character in the series and probably one of the most iconic characters of all time. Because of that, companies like Konami could feel obligated to include him in the story to hype things up. Pyramid Head could also be a part of the game just because of fan service, or maybe it had to do with the Silent Hill movies. Him being in the film 2 years prior probably also had something to do with that decision. Maybe in the end it was a lack of understanding of the original character or a misinterpretation of Silent Hill 2. Who knows? To top it all off, Pyramid Head is virtually non-existent in the game, so you can't even really make a lore case for him being there. He's in all of 3 scenes throughout the entire thing, and we don't even fight him. He just shows up randomly, leaves, and is then forgotten about. Alex weaves through more of the hotel, and eventually we get to fight a Needler full-on, without the assistance of elevator boundaries to help us. Again, I think the Needler's design is pretty well done. They're grotesque and monstrous, terrifying towering blades skulking towards us. Fighting them isn't as satisfying, though. The Needlers can't be attacked from the front. We have to get behind them or beside them to do damage. Homecoming implements a new dodge system that comes in with its combat changes. When targeting an enemy, we can dodge and push the stick in a direction to duck under an attack. If timed properly, we can counterattack, slipping under the monster's advances and catching them off guard. The only problem with this is that half the time it either doesn't work properly, meaning you dodge in a direction you didn't want to, or it's just not enough of a movement to hit the enemy's weak spot. You can also dodge roll when not targeting an enemy, but it almost never felt worth it to get out of target because it would either take too long and the enemy would attack, or the dodge roll wouldn't make you invulnerable from the enemy's attacks. I understand what they were going for here, but it's just executed so poorly. This makes enemy encounters, particularly around this section of the game, so frustrating and annoying to deal with. You can also get cornered by enemies pretty easily, making dodging impossible and attacking not an option. Alex finds the last 2 memories, a postcard for the Lakeside Amusement Park and another for Toluca Lake. We make our way back through the hotel, and returning the memories, the woman gives us a strange key. Alex uses this to unlock a door, and Josh is on the other side. Alex tries to jump to him, but he falls through the ground, back to the first floor of the hotel. In the hallway to the atrium, the room transforms, and we're in the other world. Mayor Bartlett is inside, and he doesn't want to talk. He doesn't really tell us anything of importance at all.
Shep, leave me alone.
What the hell's happened to Shepard's Glen? You're the mayor. These people are your responsibility.
Now you listen to me, you little asshole. I did everything I could to protect those people. But you can't stop what's already been started. What the hell else do you want from me?
Alex shows him the watch he found in the cemetery. He tosses the watch to the side, and the plants behind him begin to transform. It kills Mayor Bartlett, and we have our first boss fight. Homecoming's boss battles definitely feel like a modern idea of a boss battle for sure. Most of them have genuine mechanics that require attention and critical thinking, sort of. The Sepulchre requires us to shoot these sacks hanging from the ceiling. We can use the bookcases to block his attacks, and after the sacks are gone, the monster will fall to the ground. Here we have to attack the tail, but staying on our feet is a challenge in and of itself. Every single time we get hit, Alex goes to the ground, which can result in a loop of us getting up, getting hit, and falling back down. Delivering enough attacks in general will eventually take the thing down, and Alex will defeat it. The Sepulchre sinks into the ground, creating a hole. Alex falls down and ends up in a prison cell, back in Shepard's Glen. Deputy Wheeler shows up and says he doesn't know if he can trust Alex. Alex tells him about what's happened and convinces Wheeler to let him out of the cell.
Came to life out of the goddamn tree. That's what killed him. And that's the truth. I swear.
So you've seen the creatures too?
We should get moving. I'm not sure it's safe here anymore. Follow me.
Wheeler and Alex make their way through the station, being chased by schisms, a new type of lanky, lumbering hammerhead creature. Wheeler gives us a shotgun which can blast the schisms away. Alex finds his way out of the station, and L is being attacked by another new enemy, the Siam. These resemble the closers from the first game. They do quite a bit of damage and knock Alex down, but are defeated with a few blasts from the shotgun. Alex rescues L from the overturned car, but we have to leave Wheeler in the station. They head into the sewers to escape the swarm of enemies. The big problem with Homecoming is a drastic tonal shift. I think it does a lot of things competently, but its greatest undoing is misunderstanding Silent Hill as a whole. This is a common problem with post-Team Silent games in the series. Part of the charm of the original entries in the series was its perspective. The games were made by an Eastern studio, and it was their take on the Western horror genre. This unique perspective and outsider looking in was what made it so fresh and original. Homecoming is very much a Western studio doing Western horror. Jump scares, classic horror caricatures, escaping swarms of monsters. It's just all very American. That's not really what Silent Hill was about in the first place. Any Western studio can make a game that follows the formula of classic horror films, but not many can make one as genre-defining as Silent Hill 2. We have to make our way out of the sewers now. We weave through different areas and drain pools, all with L following us. I just really want to thank Double Helix for making L indestructible in this area and not having her damage affect my ending. We're separated from L while she tries to unlock a gate, and we're swarmed by 3 Needlers, as if one at a time wasn't frustrating enough. You're probably thinking it would just be easier to shoot the things, but ammo is pretty scarce in this game. I ran out entirely once in my playthrough and also ran out again at the final boss. Also, Needlers can still block bullets from frontal attacks, and getting beside them without dodging and targeting isn't very easy. After they're dealt with, the game tops it all off with a Siam. The gate opens, but Elle isn't on the other side, just a puddle of blood and her walkie-talkie on the ground. We head up the ladder, which happens to be in front of the Shepard house, but we can't get in. Wheeler says we need to get to Dr. Fitch to see if he knows what's going on with the town. Fitch is outside his office, a knife in his hand and a trail of blood leading away. Inside, we find a little girl's dresser. The key is in the other room, guarded by 6 nurses. This is just overkill at this point. Another absurd change to this game is that looking at memos doesn't freeze enemies. This was always a go-to strategy of mine, to rush into a room past enemies and try to get some info. You can't do that anymore because enemies will attack you mid-read. Also, the designers weren't competent enough to film cutscenes separately or reset the scenes before triggering a cutscene, because if you trigger one with the enemies behind you, they'll stay in the scene, which is really cool. Alex goes to open the box, but he's transported to the other world. We see a bloody, burned vision of the room, and Alex finds a doll on the floor. We chase Josh through this other world, a maze of steel staircases and lava-like pits. Eventually, we find a puzzle of fans. We have to stop all of the fans on one side and crawl through them. Through the corridors, we find Dr. Fitch, self-harming in a dark room.
I bleed out the sin, but it grows back, so I must let it out every day.
I can stop the bleeding.
I don't want your help. These wounds cannot heal.
Why did you come to this place?
I come here to remind myself. It's the only place I go where she listens to me.
Alex gives the doll to Dr. Fitch, and he begins to bleed, the doll transforming in his pool of blood. This is the Scarlet boss, the second boss of the game, a lumbering mannequin that actually looks pretty terrifying. Her design is interesting, and I like the idea of cracking the porcelain to reveal blood and muscles underneath. Fighting the boss, however, is not so interesting. It's actually borderline infuriating with the combat system that we're given. Dodges don't register, you're constantly knocked down over and over, forced to try and get hits in when you can. Eventually, destroying Scarlet's legs enough will down her, and we can start her next phase. Here, she'll jump off the walls onto Alex, and dodging at the right time will let us pry some porcelain off her. A key falls from her body, and Alex is pulled in by the pool of blood. We wake back up in her room, and the key is sitting between her broken doll. Alex remembers seeing the key's symbol in the town hall, so we head there. Using the key on the altar reveals a secret underground passage. Downstairs, we find some ancient texts dictating the responsibility of different roles in the town: Master of Arms, the Keeper, Performer of Rites, and the Executor of Law, all part of some group called the Founders. Alex finds a ceremonial dagger in the wall, and this replaces our combat knife. We can use this from here on out to unlock doors that have slots in them. Alex flashes back before this and remembers seeing the same knob on a door in his father's house. The labyrinth will spit us back out in the graveyard, and heading back to the house, we can enter this room to get the full flashback.
Dad! What the hell are you doing? You know this place is off limits. I don't ever want to see you in here again. Are we clear? I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
Inside, we can upgrade our shotgun and get the key to the attic. Heading upstairs to the attic, we find a Polaroid of Alex, a shocked face. Alex finds a secret door and sees a scene of Josh being given a family ring by his father as a child.
Okay.
Do you know what this is? This belonged to your grandpa, and his father too. And now we want you to have it. I know it doesn't look like much, but this is the most important thing I could ever give to you.
Is it worth $1 million?
Much more than that. This is a symbol of our family's past.
We face another mind-numbing sliding puzzle to make the Shepard house crest. This unlocks a drawer. Inside is a map of Silent Hill and a letter from Alex's father. He says he failed and that the Order has returned, punishing them for the exodus of their forefathers. Downstairs, Alex confronts his mother about Silent Hill.
I don't know what that is.
Stop lying. I'm tired of it. I know all about Silent Hill.
You don't know anything about Silent Hill.
Alex and his mother are ambushed by men in protective suits as the house turns into the Otherworld. We're locked inside of the Otherworld home, and we have to complete 4 puzzles to be able to leave, each lighting up a symbol on the front door. We find 3 masks around the home. These are placed on 2 corpses, each with a note designating which mask is to be placed. The front says, "To hide her pain, this face she did wear." This is the indifference mask, and the other says, "Behind this mask, her heart was laid bare." This is the frowning mask. This is representative of Alex's mother, pain hidden behind indifference. We find 3 different medals throughout the home that have to be placed on a jacket, representing Alex's time in the war. A riddle requires us to change a clock to a certain time based on a doctor's note on the wall and place a rabbit in one of the windows. This is representative of Josh using his favorite Robbie the Rabbit toy. The last puzzle has us placing different knives in Alex's father's meat room. One of the knives is the boogeyman's great knife, which is stabbed into the schism's head. Once these are complete, Alex can head out of the house after it changes back to the normal version. Alex heads outside, seeing Elle in a panic.
Elle, I thought you were...
She's gone.
Who?
My mom. I can't find her anywhere. The entire town's gone.
I think I know where they are. I found this. I'm not sure what it all means, but we need to get to Silent Hill.
They phone Wheeler and he gets a boat to transport them there.
Do you really think we're gonna find anyone there?
took her from my mother's room the morning Nora disappeared. I haven't taken it off since.
Wow. Look at that hair.
They're ambushed by the men in protective suits. Alex falls into the water and ends up on the shores of the town. Wheeler tells Alex over the walkie-talkie that he's stuck in prison. Alex has to shut off the power by heading into the electricity plant. Inside, we find the same newspaper about the serial killer Paul Russell Douglas. I'm not sure why this was in the game twice, if it was a mistake or if they just really wanted to get this point across. Inside the plant, we have to actually fight the ambush men. They have weapons of their own and they're incredibly annoying because they dodge most attacks. You can really cheese them pretty easily though by hitting them with short combos. Also, this is not a terrifying enemy because we know these are just humans. There's really nothing terrifying about fighting just another human. What's scary about this when we've fought grotesque blade monsters and giant porcelain dolls? We have to solve a puzzle by turning off the right valves in the right order to get the power down. Before we get to the prison though, we can head over to the cemetery and solve a short puzzle to get the rifle. Heading inside the prison, we make our way to cell block B to free Wheeler. We're immediately attacked by a Siam, and Wheeler is a great AI companion because he just destroys everything you put in his path. Wheeler guides Alex through the prison as he opens gates for him. Eventually, Alex solves a process of elimination wiring puzzle and accesses a secret tunnel where he finds his mother strapped to a machine.
Mom. Jesus, what did they do?
Alex. Is that you?
Mom, I'm gonna get you down.
He tries to get her down, but she seems to be in pain. She begs Alex for forgiveness, saying that they would only let them choose one. Finally, she wants Alex to kill her. We get to choose here. This is the first of 3 choices that will affect our ending in the game. I chose to kill her, giving Alex's mother the mercy that she wanted. The prison then transforms into the other world, and upstairs a cage presents itself, switches on each side. We have to match the symbols on the dials with the answers to riddles placed in front of them, one being a coffin, a knight, and nothing. Pulling the switch inside of a hole will raise the cage, and Alex is allowed to climb down. Wheeler is downstairs and expresses his condolences for Alex's mother. Wheeler found evidence of the Order having captured Elle, and the two decide to leave.
Judge Holloway!
Alex!
Quick, you get her loose before they start pumping the gas. I'll shut off the valves. Yeah.
Alex, thank God. How did you find me?
We don't have time to talk. I've got to get you out of here.
What is that? Where did you get that?
It's Elle's.
Elle, where is she? Is she okay?
I don't know. I'll find her, though. I promise.
Wheeler is sucked into the wall, and Holloway gives a slight smile as she closes the door behind the two. The asphyxia is an almost human centipede-like creature. It slashes and swipes using its long tail to do damage. Its tail is also its weak spot and the place that we need to attack. We have to dodge attacks, just like the last fight, and it also shares the detail of being just as frustrating as the last fight. After the battle, Josh shows himself through the window and Alex chases after him. He heads inside the Otherworld Church, and in the main room, we use the dagger to unlock the altar. We have to find 5 different plates to unlock this mechanism. The chalice plate is laying on a body, and we find a confessional booth upstairs. Alex hears a man confessing to the mistreatment of his sons.
I don't blame you for ignoring me, Father. I'm not even sure you can help me. I'm lost. I'm so deep beyond the reach of my faith, and I'm sinking further away.
We have the option to forgive him, just like in Silent Hill 3. This is the second choice that will affect which ending we receive. We get the kneeling man plate from this, the candle plate from a statue, the tree plate from behind a painting, and the sword plate from underneath a stained glass mural. These 5 plates each correspond with one of the following inscriptions: vengeance, penitence, desire, sacrifice, and sorrow. When the lock is removed, Alex's father is revealed to be captured behind.
I never meant to hurt you, son. I had to make a choice. And now I'm paying for it. We all are. After all I've done, you still wear my old dog tags. That must mean something.
What are you talking about? These are mine. I'm a soldier, just like you wanted.
Alex, you've been in the hospital.
I know. I was wounded in battle.
No. A mental hospital. You've been there ever since the accident.
No. That's not true. I'm a soldier. I protect people.
His father reveals that Alex was imagining his service in the forces. He gives Alex the family ring, and the boogeyman shows up to slice him in half. We head down the stairs and find one of the Order members' suits, which protects us from the steam ahead. Curtis is working with the Order and sees through Alex's disguise, knocking him out and taking him hostage. Alex wakes up and Judge Holloway is there, holding him. She reveals herself to be the villain of the game, and she explains all of her motivations and the backstory of everything. You know, like a good villain does.
Family is the most important thing, Alex. I would do anything to protect them. That's why I sacrificed my daughter.
What?
The Founders. They had good intentions. They left the Order to start a new life in Shepard's Glen, where they feared the wrath of our God. So they made a pact to keep us safe. All that was required was a small sacrifice. Our children. Once every 50 years, the founding families must make an offering to appease the god. One of our children, our own flesh and blood, struck down by our own hands.
She drills into Alex's leg and almost takes his head, but her plan backfires. Alex heads through the lair, defeating Order soldiers on his way. We have to slowly retrieve all of our items as they've been confiscated. We find a memo that tells us about a journalist looking into the town of Silent Hill after Douglas Cartland exposed the Order. That's right, the same Douglas Cartland from Silent Hill 3. We find Elle being tortured by Curtis and defeat him, saving her from imminent death. We find lots of different texts throughout the underground, detailing the Order's philosophies. This is a pretty good insight into the cult, and I like the lore that we get here, even if I don't enjoy some of its changes to the canon. Eventually, we find Wheeler, knives sunken into his chest. This is the final choice that will determine our ending, and we have the option of giving him a medkit or not. I did. Alex makes it to the final chamber, and we have to solve the final puzzle. I actually enjoyed this puzzle. Not only was it intriguing, but it delivered enough interesting lore and context to the world that we are presented. It's just a shame that it had to come right before the end of the game. There's 2 rotating locks in the center of the room. We have to line these up with the family sigils and place them where each house was standing when they performed an ancient ritual. We know that Fitch was on one platform because of his prescription pad being left there. We can reveal texts on the walls that show us the oaths each family took. Aligning the symbols opens up the lock on the final door, which we have to place the Shepard family logo into. In the last room is a mausoleum, 4 tombs, one for each family, and the names of the individual members on each. When we inspect the Shepard's tomb, it's revealed that Alex was supposed to be sacrificed as a part of the ritual.
Dad never lets us out on the lake.
Not you, anyway. Dad thinks you're a little baby who can't do anything on his own.
Oh, yeah? Then why'd he give me this?
What is that?
That's Dad's ring. But he told me not to show you, so I guess that makes me cooler.
Let me see it.
No!
What a piece of crap.
It's not. It's worth more than $1 million. That's why Dad gave it to me. Give that back! Give that back! Come on!
He has a flashback and remembers being on the boat with Josh. It's revealed that Josh and Alex had an accident on the boat, and Josh drowned. He's been dead the whole time, and his brother's death was Alex's fault. The mausoleum begins to change into the other world, and our final boss crawls from the ceiling. I love this design. It's horrific, terrifying, this half-mechanical spider, half-pregnant woman. The fight isn't all that interesting, though, as we just shoot at her until she's dead. I guess it's better than dodging and using the axe, though. When Amnion dies, Josh falls from her stomach, or at least his body does. Alex is allowed to grieve and confront the death of his brother.
Never meant for this to happen.
Alex climbs out of the underground and reunites with Elle before leaving the town. Finding all of the photos and Child's drawings throughout the game unlocks an extra scene after the credits. Our camera finds Josh on his bed, and he takes a picture of Alex's shocked face, possibly setting up a sequel. This is just the good ending of Silent Hill Homecoming. There are 5 endings in total. The drowning ending can be achieved by killing Alex's mother, but not forgiving your father in the confessional booth. Alex wakes up in a bathtub and his father drowns him. The boogeyman ending can be achieved by not forgiving Alex's father, not killing his mother, and not saving Wheeler throughout the game. In this ending, Alex is strapped to a chair, and 2 boogeymen approach him as they turn him into one of their own. The hospital ending can be achieved by forgiving your father, but not killing your mother. Alex wakes up in a hospital, the whole game a dream. Wheeler actually a nurse at the sanitarium he's in. The UFO ending can be achieved by not forgiving your father and not killing your mother, but saving Wheeler. Alex still reunites with Elle, but they both get abducted by aliens, and Wheeler is left in Silent Hill. There isn't really much info to go on for a canon ending here. Multiple costumes can be unlocked, one for each ending of the game, and also a young Alex costume that can be achieved by entering the Konami code on the main menu. There are 2 extra items, the laser pistol that's achieved from beating the game with the UFO ending, and the circular saw, which is received after beating the game once. There's actually also some unused dialogue in the game files of a young Walter Sullivan talking to a psychiatrist.
This one is your mommy also? Uh-huh. Is this one your mommy too?
That's not my mommy.
I'm not sure if this was just meant to be an Easter egg, or if it would have had plot connections overall. So, what really happened in Silent Hill Homecoming? In the year 1853, 4 families from Silent Hill, all members of the Order, left the town and formed their own settlement called Shepard's Glen. Their names were the Holloways, Shepards, Fitches, and the Bartletts. Leaving the Order, they made a pact with their deity to sacrifice one of their children every 50 years. In payment for this, they would be spared the wrath of the deity for another 50 years. The Shepards would drown their children, offered to the water. The Holloways would offer their children to the noose by suffocation. The Bartletts would offer their children to the earth by burying them alive. And the Fitches would offer their children to the knife by dismemberment. While on Toluca Lake, Josh falls off a boat while wrestling over a ring with Alex. Joshua dies and drowns, and Alex leaves town. Because Adam Shepard had already chosen Alex as his sacrifice, the pact with the deity was not fulfilled, and the town was subject to the otherworld. Margaret Holloway began to go back to the Order and reform her true faith, abducting people from Shepard's Glen. Alex returns home from his stint in a mental institution after not facing the death of his brother. He hitches a ride home with Travis Grady and returns to Shepard's Glen to find it nearly abandoned. He spends the game trying to find his brother and watches the other members of the founding families succumb to the otherworld. His mother and father are killed, and he faces off against Margaret Holloway, winning the battle. He continues to look for his brother and allies himself with Deputy Wheeler and Elle Holloway. He faces off against Amnion and finally accepts his brother's death, leaving Silent Hill for good with Elle. I didn't hate Silent Hill Homecoming nearly as much as I thought I would. Don't get me wrong, I definitely don't love it, and it really doesn't feel like that much of a Silent Hill game. It's more of a horror game than it is a Silent Hill game. I think Homecoming's biggest crime is that it's just mediocre. One of the things that's really hard when judging post-Team Silent entries in the series is that the bar has already been raised so high at the beginning that anything that even dares to shoot for the middle can look like a total failure in contrast. Homecoming definitely has its downsides. Its combat is mostly terrible, and the weird, jarring difficulty curve at the beginning of the game can be pretty painful. Its boss battles are mostly tests of patience while you're fuddling with the dodge system. The camera and movement system is incredibly awkward and strange to use. It especially doesn't feel like a Silent Hill game with the lack of interesting camera angles. The lore and story changes are also very jarring. This offshoot of the Order seems to have a special deal with the deity. The deity itself can apparently project the otherworld when it wants, even though the original nightmare was Alessa's projection upon Silent Hill. Pyramid Head's inclusion feels unnecessary, and apparently he's not special to James, but a distinct entity that can create new ones, infinitely spawning otherworld Pyramid Heads. This game removes a lot of what is special in the series and takes what was an interesting psychological journey and turns it into a mediocre horror film. The plot is also, for the most part, aimless. Alex is looking for Josh for about 70% of the game before we even really get any interesting information or developments. The story is also trying really hard to recreate the success that Silent Hill 2 had with its psychological roots. It tries to recapture the success of that huge reveal at the end of Silent Hill 2, but this game's reveal doesn't hit as hard. One of the best things about Silent Hill 2 that this game gets wrong is how we feel about James after the end of the game. He becomes completely flawed in our eyes, and you're torn on his actions. You can totally make the reasonable argument that he's a terrible person, and the writers weren't afraid to make you hate the main character at the end of things. Homecoming tries to recreate this, but Alex isn't a bad guy and didn't do much wrong. The whole thing was an accident. It wasn't on purpose, so we don't get that same feeling here. I can see how they thought that Silent Hill 2 was good because they revealed the main character to be a murderer, but that wasn't what made it good. It was contextual. There were so many other factors that this game doesn't take into account. On the other hand, the environments are interesting, and the game looks pretty good for the most part. The designs of the enemies feel genuinely inspired and unique. It feels like time, effort, and care went into the design. It's kind of sad to see the game fail overall, though, because you can tell the people that made the game cared about the series, but multiple factors, whether it was a general misunderstanding of the original game's appeals or unrealistic expectation from Konami themselves, the game just doesn't work out. Critics of the game focused on its predictability and praised its environments. Konami would eventually go back to Climax, the developers of Silent Hill Origins, for probably the most interesting installment in the series. But we'll talk about that next time. Bye, Dad.